One of the questions we get asked when it comes to decluttering your home is, where do I start? Decluttering your whole house has lots of moving parts, but in this podcast, we are going to talk about the 5 spaces you need to consider when starting a decluttering project.
You're listening to the Declutter Hub podcast, bringing you tried and tested, no-nonsense tips and advice from the leading experts in decluttering and organising your home. Now here are your hosts, Ingrid Jansen and Leslie Spellman.
This podcast episode is sponsored by the Clean and Tidy Home Show. The Clean and Tidy Home Show takes place at Excel London on the 8th and 9th of October 2022, and everyone is welcome. Visit to get all the tips, tricks, tools, and motivation you need to clean, organise, and take control of your home. Go to cleanandtidyhomeshow.com for more information and to buy tickets. We'll be there, and we hope you will too.
Hello and welcome, listeners. I'm Ingrid.
And I'm Leslie.
If you're new to the Declutter Hub podcast, you're so welcome. What you'll find here is reality, empathy, and advice by the bucket load. What we are aiming for is that you learn, be motivated, and excited to start or continue your decluttering journey with our podcast in your ear along the way. If you're more of a watcher than a listener, don't forget you can watch our podcast on our YouTube channel. And if you've been here for a while, thank you so much for tuning in every week. We appreciate that so much. So Leslie, today we're talking about spaces you need to organize first. Where are we going with this? Because we can go a lot of different ways with a topic like this, but we've got a clear vision of what we want to tell our listeners today, don't we?
We have. I mean, it's kind of like the $1 million question, isn't it? And it's everything we teach is all about is, where do you start first? That's the most difficult question that people find. People are kind of like, I just don't know where to start. And as we said in the intro, there's lots of different moving parts. It's not as simple as, well, you just need to start here. You know, typically within our membership, within our teachings, within our challenges, we talk a lot about the fact that you need to start with a room that's less emotionally difficult. And so what we can't do in this podcast is explain the rationale behind where we start and the roadmap that we use in our membership. But we wanted to give people 5 things to consider when you're getting started that are going to be a bit of a game changer.
Yes, and I think for us, and that's one, I think that gets skipped out a lot, we need to talk about safety, because houses that have a lot of clutter can actually be quite dangerous. Now, this sounds a bit dramatic, but we have seen it, Leslie. Trip hazards, things that are toppling and falling over onto people. I mean, we've all seen, the articles from the newspapers that people have actually gotten stuck under a lot of stuff when their houses were very, very full. But safety is super important when you're decluttering.
I think it's interesting because I think the people who live in quite full houses find a way of navigating things around. So they typically do feel quite safe because they know where the hazards are. But it's when we come in as professional organisers into a house, or when you invite guests into your house, that's when it's super important for things to be safe. And so safety is everything, and also logistics. And so it's not just about, hugely cluttered houses where things are going to topple on top of you. You need to make things logistically easier as well for yourself, so you can exit and enter the property quite simply. So I think the first thing that I typically do if I go to a very full house is, and we're thinking about safety, is we definitely look at stairs. And whether your house is full or not, I think we can safely say that a lot of people put stuff on their stairs with the best of intentions to take those things up with them when they next go upstairs, but often they linger, don't they, Ingrid?
Oh, yes, the stuff on the stairs that everybody walks past, and then you start to not see them anymore, and then something puts somebody else. I think we had a really good example in our membership of somebody said, I actually bought a stair basket, and I actually ended up buying another stair basket because actually the first basket didn't work and didn't help. Now, by being in your membership, I've realized that stair baskets aren't great at all, and I'm actually decluttering them both. But we put stuff on the stairs with the intention to take it up and put it down somewhere else on the first floor. So things linger and kind of get left there. Yes.
Yeah, and so I think that one of the very first things that we do when we're going into a house to work on is that we make sure that it is safe, and so we clear those stairs. Now, at this point, you don't necessarily need to do a decluttering project on your stairs, and if it is the stuff that's going upstairs, typically it's going to stay anyway. But you just need to move it off the stairs. So before you embark on any space in your home to declutter, you really need to think about that safety, and you need to think about clear pathways. So that might be the stairs to make those safe. It might be a clear pathway in and out of your house to make sure that you can easily take the stuff out, hopefully, I was going to say in and out, but there might be, hopefully there's not as much stuff coming in and it's all going out. We need to make sure that we've got a decent pathway to get out with the stuff that we are decluttering, because moving bin bags full of stuff to declutter, to take to charity shop, to take to the trash, to recycle, they're quite cumbersome, they're quite heavy, they're difficult to manage sometimes. And so we definitely need to give ourselves more step space than we would just as a you on your own. You need more space around you for the bin bag, don't you?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's also what I wanted to talk about in when we talk about safety. Make sure that your door can open fully, whether that's the front door, the back door, the side door, all of your doors, even the doors that you have to go into a room. If there's stuff on the back of the door or behind the door and it makes it tricky to open a door fully, it's tricky to go into that room, but also that tricky to go out, especially when you're carrying stuff in your hands that you want to put outside or move to another place. So it's not only the stairs and kind of the pathways, but definitely also make sure that doors of rooms can open fully, because you are helping yourself so much, because it gets a lot less hard work to open a door then. If stuff behind the door, it creates a barrier and it gets in our way and we get annoyed with it and we're like, oh, and I can't get through properly. And then it's hard to get stuff out. And that's what we don't want. We want actually for you to make it easy for yourself to take stuff out, because then it will be easier for you to do it.
Yes. So safety is the first thing that we need to consider when we start a decluttering project. Now, for some people, that's going to be more important than others. Some people who've got those sort of doors that won't open, it might not be that the rooms are very full. It might be that there's a load of dressing gowns or something on the back of the door, or there's something that's fallen down that's obstructing it. But think about that safety. Very, very important. It's something that we as professional organisers have a very big handle on, isn't it, Ingrid?
Yeah. And also one of the first things I do, Leslie, even like with the front door, when there's a lot of posts behind the front door, because of course a lot of our post boxes are in our front doors, and then people just forget to pick up the post, or there's too much of it. A lot of times the first thing I do is grab the post from behind the door. So first of all, so I don't step on somebody else's post, which would be not good, but also then because it can, if it builds up, it can make sure that the door can't open fully. So yeah, very important number one, Leslie.
Yes. And so now let's talk about things that are going to make the job of decluttering easier, Ingrid. Now, we've talked about pathways, haven't we, which is very, very important in terms of logistics and getting in and out of the property. Yeah. Anything else that we can think about that's going to make the whole job of decluttering easier?
Well, I think there are two things that are crucial in this matter, Leslie. First of all, I think we really need to talk about creating some sort of empty horizontal space. You need a place to work. Now, from experience, we sit on the floor a lot because sometimes that's the only place that we can work. So we want to create a space on the floor. But ideally, you want to create either a flat surface on a bed or on a table. So you've got somewhere where you can take a bag and get it all out. And so you can categorize and put like with like. If you're trying to work on a postage stamp of an area, it's really hard because things get confused with other things. So if you can, clear some sort of horizontal space.
Yeah, I want to talk a little bit more about that, Ingrid. So you talked about the fact that we work on the floor a lot of the times, and we do. We absolutely do. And I think most professional organisers would agree that we like to sit on the floor. And the reason why we do that is because we can kind of pivot round. And what it means is that we can, when we're at this sort of gathering like with like stage, or the sorting and organising stage, or categorising stage, it's really easy for us to have lots of different containers that we can sort into. And sometimes if you're on a table, it's a little bit more restrictive. I mean, the biggest time that I work on the floor is with paperwork, to be honest with you, because there are so many different categories and you need so many different boxes to sort into. So, but obviously working on the floor, it can be tricky, especially with a slip disc or plantar fasciitis, which I have at the moment. And so it can be a little bit more difficult. And so we're not advocating that if you've got a dodgy back or if you're struggling, obviously, try and think about your posture, think about sitting on a chair. But if you're fully fit and able, maybe the floor is the place to go, in which case clear a good solid space on the floor.
Yeah. Now, the second thing we wanted to talk about in kind of how can you make your job easier when you're decluttering is you need to think about your exit plan. Where are the items you no longer want go? Are they being donated to your favorite charity? Are they going into the recycling bin? Do you need to have a shredding box ready? Do you need to create a box where you've got a couple of items that you need to return to a friend or a family that thinks you've been borrowing? Where are the items you no longer want going, besides probably some of it when it's broken needs to go into the bin? Think about this in advance. And it sounds crazy because you probably think, I just want to get started. But why would I think about where it's going? I just want to get it out of here. But the problem is, if you don't think about it in advance where the stuff is going, you will end up with a bag somewhere that needs to go somewhere. And it will be dumped somewhere. And you see where I'm going with this? At some point, sometime, you're going to find this back and go, what did I need to do with this? Why have I got 4 bags here randomly somewhere in my house and I don't even know? And you're doing the same job again. So before you even get started, you need to think about where it's going. It sounds so counterintuitive, doesn't it, Leslie?
It does. And it might just be something as simple as if you've got, I mean, in the UK, we have wheelie bins here, don't we? That we kind of we can sort of split different things, whether it's rubbish or whether it's paper recycling or bottles and cans and all that kind of stuff. So we have different things that we can put into recycling bins. It might be just as simple as, why don't you drag those bins to the front door or to the back door so it's easy for you to get to them? So they might not be in the normal place where they are, but it's just going to save you 20 or 30 steps every time, isn't it, Ingrid? So just a little bit of forward thinking about how can I make this process simpler? Because what we don't want you to do is to have these things that are like annoying, because I think we said, if you haven't thought about where your stuff's going to go, if you haven't cleared your boot out so that the charity shop can go in there, if you've not brought your wheelie bin to the back door and it's pouring with rain, all these things are things that are going to stop you in your tracks. And we do not want, as Ingrid says, any barriers in your way when you're actually starting out on that decluttering journey. So really, really important. The logistics and preparation, that's what we're talking about. We're talking about, think about the logistics and think about the safety and think about the preparation of making things easier for yourself.
Now, let's move on to the next thing then, Leslie, because we want to get some big wins, right? When we're just starting out, we need some wins, especially if it's been hard to declutter, we haven't had a lot of time. We want to see the fruits of our labor. And there are items that we can easily declutter, hopefully, that will give us big wins, that will give us then the motivation to go on.
Yes, and these big wins tend to be big things. And so we really need to start identifying some big things that are going to be big wins. And so I'm talking about things like cardboard boxes, that have not been broken down or have been broken down, in fact. Appliance boxes that you're keeping and you're a little bit on the fence about, let them go. Take them out, get them straight out right as soon as you start. And all of a sudden the space starts to open up. Honestly, we can't stress enough how getting rid of cardboard boxes makes you feel so good. You can get rid of 10, 20, because if we are clutter bugs, what typically happens is we buy things online and they come in cardboard boxes. We don't get rid of the cardboard boxes and it starts to clutter up your space. And so cardboard boxes is always something that is on my radar as soon as we start a decluttering project. Get them out of the house, get them into the recycling if possible, and that is a big win. Anything else, Ingrid, apart from those cardboard boxes?
Oh, yes. I mean, a lot of times when I come to clients' houses, they're like, oh, here is a bin with some items for the charity shop that I decluttered ages ago. Would you mind taking that bag as well? And I'm like, yes, bring it to me, give it to me. I love it because that immediately gives that space. Because what I said before, you don't want things end up lingering in your house. That's why the exit plan is so important. But when you're starting and you're finding bags you already did long time ago, clear that out and create yourself some space. Maybe if you've got lots of stuff that you bought from your friend, make an appointment this week to go and see your friend for a coffee or just to drop around her house instead of thinking, yeah, I'll get around to it one day. You want items to leave. And if you already have some items that you've earmarked to be gone from your house, that's the perfect place to get started.
Yeah, and same principle goes again, Ingrid, in terms of big wins, is things that you absolutely know, furniture-wise, that you're not going to use, but that's just waiting to leave. And so you've got a bookcase that's kind of not found its exit at this moment in time. Let those things go, put them on free cycle, put them on Olio, let somebody collect them. So do all that stuff and get those big pieces out of the way if you absolutely know that they're going, because that's going to make a huge difference and it's going to open up some space for you to work more safely. Logistically, things are going to be easier and you're going to feel like there's a whole load of stuff left the room straight away.
I know. And you know what, Leslie, it's not only furniture. It can be, you've replaced something that was broken, but you haven't gotten rid of the old broken one yet. For example, a laundry basket, there's plastic. You can really hurt yourself. Let that go. If you've upgraded something, but you're still hanging on to the old one, let the old one go. I was with a client a while back and she's like, oh yeah, she had actually quite a small living room and there was like a small settee there, a little sofa there, completely in the way. And I'm like, let it go. Or kids' toys that are quite bold, especially when they're little, the toys are humongous for some reason. Let some of the bigger things go. So you get a space to move around and see some space appearing.
I mean, I'm excited already. This is what's nice about the start of a decluttering journey. All of these things are possible, and it's just about setting things off in the right way, isn't it, Ingrid, and giving yourself a little bit of a helping hand at the beginning.
Yeah.
So we're going to go to a break now, and in a minute we're going to come back and we're going to talk about more spaces that you need to consider when you're starting out on your decluttering journey. I can't actually believe we're talking about this, but the best festive periods are the ones carefully planned and thought about. Presents, cards, wrapping, food, drink, decorations, and preparing yourself and your space all need to be thought about. And the secret to success is planning early. The good news is we have our countdown to Christmas just for you, and we have slashed the price of it to just $19. 6 sessions of video guidance from Ingrid and I will ensure you will have your most organized festive season ever. Go to declutterhub.com/countdown for more information.
Hi, everyone. Welcome back to this podcast. Now, before the break, we talked about safety and logistics and big wins you can do and things you can do to make it easier for yourself. So let's continue talking about what we can do to organize our spaces. And where do we start, Leslie?
I think, obviously we've said right at the beginning of the podcast, it's quite a complex process to think about where to begin. And that's why we have our huge Reset Your Home roadmap that takes you step by step through your home. But sometimes people need a little bit of a boost in certain areas of their home. If you've been quite down, if you've been feeling if your well-being is off, if you've been feeling a little bit stressed, it's important to get the spaces right that are going to affect your mood. And so probably the biggest one for that is going to be the bedroom, isn't it, Ingrid?
Oh, crucial, Leslie. I mean, sleep is so important. And I think especially women have a habit of putting everybody else first and put themselves always last on the long list of things behind parents and pets and kids and partners and friends and all of that. So we nibble away at the hours that we can sleep, but we have to rest, we have to sleep. And you can only do that when you've got a relaxing bedroom. So having a very chaotic bedroom can be quite problematic to get a good rest and a good sleep.
Yeah, and that's why I think it's important quite early on in your decluttering journey. And if you are feeling these things, if your sleep is being compromised, if your stress levels are high, if your well-being is being compromised, to think about getting the bedroom done quite early on in your decluttering journey so you can get that good night's rest. I think also laundry, even though it's a big project to get your laundry under control, isn't it, Ingrid? I think that to get that under control really gives you a feel-good feeling. A feel-good feeling, is that a thing? A feel-good feeling? I think you know
Oh
what
my
I mean.
gosh, there's nothing better. I mean, let's be realistic here. Laundry is always there and will always come back. Whether you're by yourself or with six other people, that laundry basket is like 5 minutes empty and somebody puts something in there and you're like, I've literally just caught up on everything. But the thing is, that's the thing, we need to stay on top of it. Laundry involves a lot of different steps, between it's dirty to it's back into my cupboard, clean, ironed, washed and tidied for me to wear again. There's a lot of different steps. And if for some reason we skip steps or we lose track of where we are with laundry, it starts to build up and build up and build up. And that can really create lots of piles around your home. Laundry then needs to be caught up on, which then means that there's laundry everywhere drying or everywhere. Laundry can really easily get out of hand. And it's really, I think, important if you are struggling with clutter and with disorganization, that laundry, to get a hang of that and to get that moving, will help you so much.
I think it's also important as well, Ingrid, when we talk about laundry, that you need to be caught up on your laundry to do an effective bedroom or wardrobe declutter as well, because you need to have a full picture of what you've got. And if half of it has been sort of lying in the bottom of a laundry basket for months, then you're not going to remember it. And so when it gets to looking at how many pairs of black jeans you've got in your wardrobe, you need to have the full picture. So it's another reason why laundry needs to be quite early on in your decluttering journey.
Yeah, very important. And I mean, so satisfying though. And that, no, that doesn't mean you have to iron everything and that you have to fold everything. But I think once you get in the habit of regularly doing loads of laundry, regularly folding and ironing, if you iron, and putting it away, then it gets easier to get dressed because you're not wondering, somewhere in this house there's this top and I've been trying to find this top because I want to wear it for a certain occasion or I want to wear it into work and now I can't find it. You lose oodles of time searching for stuff. So if you get on top of your laundry, it will really help you save lots of time.
Absolutely. So I think, yeah, it's so important to think about your well-being. So if you are very stressed out, think about, what can I do in my house that's really going to make me feel a little bit better? And maybe that's the place to start. You know, if cooking, for example, is a big part of what makes you less stressed out, or baking, for example, something like that, you love to bake, but actually the clutter in your kitchen is stopping you from doing that, then tackle the kitchen first. Really, really important to think about your well-being, because once we get that well-being right, what then happens is we feel more positive and we can tackle other areas in our home. Now, one of the things that's a big problem when it comes to decluttering is that we are worried about guests. And so quite often people are spurred into action to declutter because someone is coming over. So do you believe then, Ingrid, that we should be focusing on those spaces first?
Oh, that is actually quite a tricky question, Leslie, I believe, because I think it depends. Is somebody just popping in to drop something off? You know what I mean? Or is actually somebody coming for a week-long stay at your house because you haven't seen them in a long time and they're going to stay and they're going to be in your spare bedroom? So I think there's different types of guests.
Absolutely. But I think that to make yourself feel better, it's quite interesting, actually, as I sort of say this. I think that all of these things are really interwoven, aren't they? Thinking about logistics, thinking about your well-being, thinking about big wins. It's all about boosting that positivity and boosting your thought process with decluttering when you first get started. And sometimes it's very, very important for us to present our home in the right way. Maybe we felt judged before, maybe we felt ashamed, and we don't want that to happen. So therefore, whatever we do, we might have loads of stuff behind doors and say, don't go in there. But as long as we've got the guest bedroom right and the guest bathroom right, and maybe some other spaces in our home that our guests are going to go into, that makes us feel better. So if that's you, then perhaps those spaces that guests are going to go is the most important room for you to get started in.
Yeah, I think it really depends as well on the climate where you are, the time of year. For example, if you've got guests coming in the middle of winter and it's going to be dark and you're not going to be using your garden, don't put your garden first on the list to do, because that's probably not the room where you're going to hang out. But if it's the middle of summer and you're expecting to do possibly a barbecue or something like that, maybe the garden does come earlier on the list than trying to do a basement that nobody will see or a loft that nobody will see. So you need to really think this through. If a kitchen is the hub of the home where you eat and where you socialize and where you hang out when you've got a guest, that might then be more important to sort out than a home office. If you've got several rooms that need attention, you need to really think about, okay, if this guest is going to come into my house, what will the areas be that they will see, what's important, and how do I feel that make sure that they're comfortable and feel happy and that I feel good about having them in my home.
I think to close out this podcast, we've talked about the 5 spaces that you need to declutter first. And we have a caveat in there, of course we do, because we teach things in quite a specific order, don't we?
Yeah.
But if somebody asks us a question, we would veer off that path for these reasons, wouldn't we? So if somebody said to us, well, actually, I'm not sleeping, we'd be like, well, you need to go to your bedroom first and not ignore the roadmap, but kind of veer off from it a little bit, deviate, because it's quite flexible. But I think what I wanted to talk about to close out this podcast is where you don't start first, Ingrid, where you absolutely do not start. And
yes.
So, yeah.
Tell me, Leslie.
Yes. You don't start in the most difficult room in your house. And so you do not start in that room of doom. You do not start in your packed to the rafters, loft, garage, all of that. That is not the place to start. You don't start in the room that's the most emotionally difficult room. So you don't start with your photographs or your memorabilia. Even though that feels very appealing, you need to build up that decluttering muscle before you go there. And you typically don't start in living spaces, because what happens in living spaces is there's lots of stuff in there that belongs elsewhere in the house. And often you need to declutter the other rooms in your house so you can put those things away. So a lot of people do want to do living rooms and sort of family rooms and things like that, but we typically leave those till much later so that we have room to put other stuff.
Yeah.
So that's a couple of little things about where not to start when you're starting out with decluttering your home. So I hope that's been helpful. Ingrid, anything else to add?
Oh, yeah. You know what, Leslie? You were talking about it, and it just reminds me how much I just love decluttering and organizing.
Yeah.
It is so satisfying to see our members flourish, and when we work with clients, to create order and to feel them become more happier in their homes, and to see that they're able to find stuff and that they are afraid to trip over anymore because we've made it safer, that there's an exit plan, but we think through, it just, I love it.
I know you love it. And so, because you're going to wax lyrical about your decluttering love, Ingrid.
I know.
Let's talk about, well, it's actually quite fitting, because this is what we're going to talk about again next week. We're going to go into more detail about, Ingrid,
how to create a calm bedroom. So I can't wait, because we just kind of scratched the surface in this podcast about bedrooms, and we have a lot more to say. So we're going to talk about that next week. Of course, let us know in the comments. Was this podcast helpful? Have we inspired you to look at safety and logistics, or do a little big win and find a big box that you've been meaning to declutter, or a piece of furniture that's standing in your way somewhere and is really annoying you? Tell us in the comments. You can put a comment in on our show notes. So if you go to declutterhub.com/210, Then you have the show notes of this podcast, and you can find out lots of other interesting information and watch this show on YouTube, and you can put in comments. So we look forward to reading whatever you've got to tell us.
Do you know what you just said, Ingrid? And I'll pick it up because it made me laugh. And it is very fitting, actually. You said just go and do a little big win, which is kind of like, but the point is that those big wins can be little because they take little effort for a big win. So just thought I'd say, maybe we should call them little big wins.
I like it.
Now on.
I like it. Yeah. So thanks for being here, and we'll see you next week.
Thanks so much for listening to the Declutter Hub podcast. Don't forget to subscribe to us in your podcast player so you don't miss an episode, and we'll see you next week.